Hello and welcome back, my friends, to another episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast, where we provide actionable tips and tricks that you can take and apply immediately to grow your practice so that you can serve more patients and ultimately leave a greater impact, because that is the name of the game, my friends. My name is Mark Thackeray, and as always, I am honored to be here with you right now, today. Wherever you're listening, however you may be listening, thank you for spending your time with me right now. It's going to be awesome. Today is episode number 22, and we dive into a topic that I personally get really excited about. So I might be going super fast just because it gets me so pumped up because I've seen so much success with it. And that topic is email marketing. Today we're going to dive into the why behind email marketing, why I believe it's the marketing backbone of your practice. It's that important. I share the nuts and bolts of how to do it, from email formatting to layout to how to get your emails opened and read. You guys are going to love it. So let's get after it.
What do you get when you combine simplified practice marketing, proven ROI strategy, and Van Skate shoes? You get Mark Thackeray, of course. So lace up, grab your green smoothie, and get ready, because this is Dental Marketing Secrets. And this is Mark.
Wow, another gorgeous day here in Salt Lake City, looking up at the Wasatch Mountains, and I'm eager to get going on this, you guys. I love this topic, and I find it so interesting because there are so many marketing opportunities out there right now, and email marketing just isn't seen as the cool thing to do. You know what I'm saying? People don't get super excited about it because it's been around for some time. It's not the shiny new object that just came out. And part of the reason for this, that I believe, is because people don't necessarily wake up and say, I wish I was getting more emails. They don't they don't run to their inbox and be like, oh man, I wish, if only I had 10 more emails. They don't say that. And that's part of the explanation. And I think another part of it is that people are becoming more sensitive to that. They don't want to come across as spammy or too in your face, hardcore sales type of approach. So that's why I believe that some people don't get very excited about email marketing. But really and truly, your email list, I think, is the lifeblood of your practice. It's the one place where you control nearly everything about your message. If you look at Google, you have to play by their rules. You're playing in their sandbox. And those rules can change at any time. And all of a sudden, it could be working for you extremely well, and you have everything set up to run smoothly, and you're seeing an inflow of patients, but then all of a sudden they change their rules, and suddenly you're kicked out. And you're looking on the outside, you're sitting on the outside of the sandbox looking into everyone else. And that's a scary proposition. And Facebook's no different. If you look at, and I love Facebook, I do a ton of work on Facebook with clients, and we have a lot of success, but the rub is that things change, and they will change. This Facebook's a great example of that. In the past, one of the goals was to build up your following, build up your likes, so that whenever you would post a message on your page, all of those followers would see it. They'd actually see that in their feed. But that doesn't happen automatically anymore. It's essentially become this pay-to-play format, even for your followers that you've spent all this time building up. So it's changing, it's evolving. But one of the great things about email marketing is, like I said before, it allows you to control that messaging. Okay? If things were to go crazy, if your website were to shut down, or if you were to get kicked out of Google Sandbox, like I mentioned before, or Facebook changes their rules once again, you still have email to fall back on. That's why it's so important that you're continually adding to that list. You're taking the time with patients in office to acquire their email, make sure it's correct, it's updated. And what I love about email too is that it allows you the opportunity to receive constant feedback from your patients. Especially in an unprecedented time like this, you guys, you can use email to identify exactly what your patients are worried about, that you'll be prepared to help them through those concerns. Okay, so we're going through a really interesting time right now. Patients, you have a whole mix of patients. Some are eager to get back into normalcy, and they will just come into the office, and that's great. But others are not. Others are very, very anxious about this situation, and the last place they want to be is in a dental chair. Where there's their hands are getting in your mouth, and they've seen other patients, and it just, to them, it's this massive concern. It's this dark cloud, and you're going to be the one to have to help them through that. Okay. And email is a great channel to do that because you can get, like I mentioned, you can get very personalized feedback from your patients. In addition, email marketing also allows you to be very timely and to be very specific. Okay. One example is if, let's say you're having some type of promotion, it only lasts for the next 72 hours. Email can be a very effective way to broadcast that message out to your list. And in terms of being specific, email allows you the chance to engage and connect with your patients at whatever point they're at in the case acceptance journey. We've talked about this before on the podcast, how all patients fall somewhere along the spectrum, right? It's this journey that they go through, and email has that ability to connect with them at different points along that journey and you can customize those emails based on where they're at. That's what's so cool. You're not just blanketing everyone and just saying, hey, you're all ready for treatment. No, that's not going to work. Most of those people are going to disengage and many times unsubscribe because they're not ready. They're not at that point yet. But if done properly, you can set up a sequence to go out. And we're going to dive into this, but you can create a system that's going to allow you to talk to those people at right where they're at, to really discuss and evaluate their situation, their concerns right then and there. And that's what's so powerful about email is it helps them to navigate that process, navigate that journey, and it helps them to take that next step forward in that process. Okay, and I'm working with a client right now. We are doing this exact thing. We're building out a sequence that educates the patient on the entire process. It gives them a high-level overview of what to expect. It starts to address the concerns that they have because patients have questions. We know that, but you need to address those concerns in order for them to move forward. Okay, it gives them this high-level overview, and then really takes them by the hand and walks them through step by step the whole process. And at the end, they walk out of that process having enough information to make the best decision possible. And what's so cool about all of this is that once you set this up, yes, it's an initial work and investment in time in getting this all created. Or you can have someone like us do it for you. But either way, there's an initial investment in time. But after that, you flip the switch on and let that baby run. It is constantly going on in the background, helping move patients along towards the goal, which is case acceptance. That is the power of email marketing. So let's talk about how to use email marketing for your practice. Now, there are essentially two primary ways to use email. Okay, one is an email broadcast, and the other is what I like to call nurture campaigns, or some people call them drip campaigns. Okay, so let's start with broadcast emails. So think of this as a mass email that's sent out as a one-time announcement. Okay, so broadcast emails are a great way to share news about your practice, to share content or information that patients would find helpful. It could be an announcement that, hey, you're now open on Saturdays, and maybe you talk a little bit about why that's important. But it could also be used to promote various services or events. Okay, let's say you have a grand opening event and you want to just blanket, an email that goes out to every single person on your list to notify them about that event. Okay, or you could use it to notify patients about any issues that you're experiencing. Say your phone's down, and so that's why you're just trying to have another avenue to connect with patients and inform them of what's going on. Okay, broadcast emails are cool because they can be scheduled in advance, like a monthly newsletter. Say if it goes out every week or every other week or once a month, that can all be scheduled in advance. Okay, but they could also be sent out spontaneously. So if you just have, like I said, it could be an announcement on a promotion. Let's say that you are announcing a flash sale, okay, on whitening, at the beginning of summer, and it's only going for a couple of days. But email is a fantastic way. A broadcast email is a perfect way to get that message out to your patients. Okay. Now, nurture campaigns or drip campaigns are best viewed as a sequence. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why some people call drip campaigns, because you drip one email at a time over a predetermined length. Okay. So it's 3 to 10 days, something like that. And each email will typically build off one another. And what I love about nurture campaigns is that they give you the chance to connect with your patients or prospective patients and educate them over a period of time without fire hosing them to death. You know what I mean? Have you ever been with a patient and they're interested in dental implants and you're sitting with them and you explain all the details, all the steps of a dental implant, only to watch as their eyes suddenly glaze over, and you can tell by the end of the conversation that they really did not get a single word you were saying. Sometimes it's just too much information. And so a nurture campaign is a fantastic way to break up all that information into bite-sized chunks and deliver that information over, it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks. Okay. And what's so cool about that is that you can do that without having to invest the personal time of explaining that one-on-one. Okay. And that's so great. It's like you can be building you can be preparing all these patients or prospective patients to accept that treatment automatically, at their convenience when they want to sit down and read the email. I love it. It's so powerful. What else is great about all of this is that, like I said, it is an investment, but it can pay off in spades because you can continually run these campaigns, and yes, you may make tweaks here and there in the future, but all these can be working for you to build your practice in the background. Okay. So you can use these to introduce prospective patients to your practice. Say there's information that they're looking for, going back to the dental implants example, say there's people out there that know they need dental implants. They're looking for a practice to go get them done. They still have questions. That could be a great entry point into your practice, into your contact list, is through the use of a nurture campaign. Okay, where they opt in, and all of a sudden that the machinery starts cranking out the emails. It comes the first day, it comes day 3, it comes day 5, however you want to set that up. But all of a sudden it's qualifying all these people, and you have a set amount of people that are qualifying right now every single day to become your patients. Can you see how powerful that is? You see why I'm getting so excited about this? And look at it from a patient's perspective too. They're showing interest in dental implants or let's say a full smile makeover. They opt in to learn more. And now all of a sudden, every other day, they're receiving valuable content, answering their questions about the entire process. And by the time that she receives that last email, she is thrilled. Honestly, she feels so much better because now she has the information to make the best decision possible. And what's even better is that you provided that to her. And she looks at you as an industry expert, because only experts are sharing information. You see that all the time on TV. You see it on TED Talks. They get the experts to share the information. If you're publishing information, you're sharing it, that shows that you care about the consumers. You want them to make the best decision possible. We talk a lot about that on this podcast. You probably know that by now, but it is very, very important. And again, you can use emails in so many different ways. Okay, so let's dive into some of the nuts and bolts of email marketing. Okay, so we talked about what they are. We talked about email broadcasts versus nurture campaigns. We talked about some of the uses a little bit. And there's so many other uses. You can use it to re-engage patients. We talked about how you can use it for prospective patients to introduce them to your practice as an entry point. You can also use them to re-engage inactive patients, or even active patients, but just to foster that relationship. You're providing value. I just did this for a client the other day, and it's going to non-patients, but it's also going to their patients. And we've had so much good feedback on their Facebook page in email form after we've sent this. It's an opt-in, but then it goes through a sequence to, so they get this download, this resource guide that goes over, like I mentioned, it talks about the questions, frequently asked questions and all that. But then the follow-up emails also dive a little bit further to really drive home those points. And again, the feedback has just been phenomenal. People are very excited about it, especially right now. They want someone to look to. They want a leader to look to because there's so much uncertainty going on in the world right now. So a little tangent, but very, very powerful. And that's another way you can use email marketing, nurture campaigns specifically. Okay, so let's talk about how to set some of these up. Let's talk about the actual nuts and bolts of writing an email. So one of the first things that you have to remember, this is mission critical before you send out any email, is to ask yourself this question. Why am I sending this email? Okay, what is the purpose of the email, or what do I want the patient to do? What action do I want them to take after reading this message? All your emails, every single email must have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, people will stop opening your emails, and most likely they're going to unsubscribe altogether. Okay, so here's what I recommend. Before you write any part of the email, sit down and write out exactly what you want the reader to do. You know, if everything, the perfect scenario, you want the reader to do this and fill in the blank. What action is that? Maybe it's click to learn more about a virtual smile consult, or maybe it's getting feedback and you need a confirmation. And so you say something like, hit reply and let me know that you would like this earlier appointment time. Or it could be send a check for $5,000 to Mark Thackeray at, and that's a good one. I use that one all the time. You can use that too. I'll give you my address in the show notes. But be very specific in what you want them to do. Okay? Spell it out as plainly and as clearly as possible, because that's one thing about today is that we have so many distractions. We are just bombarded on every side that our mind is constantly running and doing things. It's not that we can't figure it out for ourselves. We just lack the mental bandwidth to do it most of the time. So you need to be very specific in what you want them to do. Again, I just spelled it out. Hit reply and let me know that you'd like to take this earlier appointment time. Like, you have to be that type of granular specific, okay? So that you can get them to do, because you don't want to make them think. That's the biggest thing, is you don't want to add any or require them to do any extra effort, okay? And here's another thing. Only have one specific goal of that email. Don't ask them to do 6 different things in a single email. That is way too much. It's overload. And as a result, when people get overwhelmed, they don't do anything. And so you're not going to get good results if you take that approach. Okay, so next let's talk about 2 things that are also mission critical. So important. I keep using that, mission critical. That must be on my mind. SpaceX, I don't know, maybe that's what it is. So how to get your emails opened and how to get your emails read. Very, very important. The absolute number one goal of every email is to get opened. Okay, has to be, because unless your email gets opened, they can't take any other action. Okay, if they don't open it, that kills the entire effort. That kills the entire campaign. It doesn't matter how important that information that you are sharing. It could be life-changing. It could be life-saving information. But if they don't open it, it does not matter. It's like it didn't exist. Okay, all that effort is for nothing. So it's imperative that you focus your attention on writing a compelling email subject line. Okay, think of this as your headline for the email. This is what's going to cause that reader to either open it or to simply swipe and delete, or click and delete without even a second thought. And a good exercise to go through is to look at your personal email inbox. Now then scroll through and look at which emails that you opened. Okay, look at the subject line. What made you click on that subject line? Okay, because that subject line has a major influence on that email. If it gets opened, if it gets tossed. Here are a few subject lines that I've used in the past that have worked well to get people to click and to get opening. And most of them you're going to see are curiosity based, meaning they're compelling, they pique your interest, so they want to finish that thought. You know, they want you they kind of hook you in to wondering, okay, what's going to happen, or what is he talking about? So here are some examples that have worked well. Eek, I need your help. Something very simple like that, but this was for a patient's input survey, and we generated, I think it was over 700 responses from this survey. 700 responses, you guys. just crazy. But it's curiosity. It's like, you know, people have this natural inclination to help someone else. If you ask for someone's help, more often than not, people will have the disposition to help. You know, they may not end up going through with it, but they're going to have that initial urge to respond and help you out. Here's another one. Gourmet, made to order, chocolate. Parentheses, for you. And this was a Valentine's Day offering to those that came in for treatment during Valentine's Day, and there was some chocolate. We are gonna have some chocolate that are ready for them, made by these companies that would make it on site. Super cool. It's just fun, just something different. Here's another one. I totally blew it. ... People are like, what? What do you mean? Totally blew it? Like that. People love to hear about that stuff. Personal experiences. We're going to talk about that more later on. I totally blew it. ... Here's another one that follows that same thought. Never thought this would happen. ... Never thought this would happen. ... People are like, what? What didn't you think was happening? Yeah, I mean, you naturally go to that. Here's another good one. This one, I haven't used this one, but this was one that came in my inbox recently, so I added this to the list. 1-star review, and it had a little star emoji. I'm like, oh, nobody wants to share their dirty laundry, in public like that. I thought I have to click on this and see what they're talking about. So that's a great way. And what was cool about it is they took their negative review and addressed it and used it as a call to action to their list, because this wasn't in dental, but to their client list to ask for feedback on how they could improve. Very, very powerful. Admitting that you sometimes make mistakes, showing your human side, and then asking for help. Super, super compelling. Here's another email subject line. The ugly truth about crowns. ... That's a very compelling one. People are like, oh, a dentist talking about the dark side of some type of dental treatment. Very, very compelling. Here's another one. I'll just run through these last ones. The key to a brilliant smile that gets largely overlooked. The key to a brilliant smile that gets largely overlooked. Very, very compelling. The day it all changed for me. Again, this is, and we'll talk into what some of these lead into. But like I mentioned before, most of these are curiosity based, meaning they hook you into reading more because you want to finish that thought. And a big mistake that a lot of practices make is not spending enough time on the subject line. They just gloss over it. They'll simply say something like Creek Dental Newsletter and then fire off the email. And they wonder why they get a 6% open rate. I mean, who wants another email landing in their inbox? Yay. Nobody says that, So look at what you're sending from a patient's point of view and then adjust that value, focus on the value that you're providing them. Okay, which brings us to the second part of this equation, how to get your emails read. Now, this really takes us to the content portion of the email. And as you know, I'm a firm believer in providing as much value as possible to your patients. I get on my soapbox all the time about that. And email is no different, you guys. Sending value-driven emails will strengthen the relationship with your patients. And as I mentioned before, will position yourself as the expert, okay? And someone that they can trust. They trust experts, okay? Consciously, subconsciously, they look to them for information, okay? If you're consistently sending valuable emails, then your patients are coming to expect something good from you. And whenever they see one of your messages, you're basically training them that, hey, some good information is coming. Help is on the way. And it's going to help them in their life. And that's why they click on it. One tactic to engage patients right from the get-go is to use a personal story or experience. You notice some of those subject lines that I mentioned earlier. The day it all changed for me. That is great subject line. Or what was the other one? I totally blew it. I totally blew it. It talks, that begs, there's a story behind that, right? And that's a great way to introduce whatever it is. We talked about having one clear goal for the email, but having one clear call to action and a story is a fantastic way to hook the patient in right from the get-go. We, as humans, we love stories. And they naturally capture people's attention. I don't know if you've noticed that, but if you're going, let's say you're in a work environment, or let's say you're at church maybe, or it could be in some type of public setting. But when someone uses the story, they say, let me tell you a story. You'll notice everyone starts to pay attention. Their head lifts up, their ears perk, and they engage. And that's the power of storytelling, you guys. And if you haven't listened to podcast 15 about storytelling, that is a must. Okay, so go back and listen to that. But if your goal of your email is to help patients, for example, take action on a promotion for crowns, let's say, then a great way to do this is to start with a patient experience. You pick a patient that finally decided to go forward with crowns, and talk about her story and how thrilled she was after the process. You make it a short story. You don't want to go on and on and on, but you talk about there's little ways that you can introduce. She was scared. She was nervous about coming in for treatment. She was worried about the cost. She was wondering if it was going to be painful. And then you basically share that story and the successful result after the fact. How amazed she was after the process, how much easier it was than she expected, and how much better she feels about herself. Okay. And then you weave that story into your one clear objective for the email. Okay. In this example, it would be to help others see how much better, how much happier they can be with their smile, just like Jessica Smith. Okay. That is a fantastic way to engage readers right from the get-go, is to use a story. Is this making sense? Can you see how much more effective that your email will be if you have a very powerful, compelling subject line, and then begin your email with a personal experience to introduce your topic? Okay. If you're doing that, you are already head and shoulders above the competition, head and shoulder, light years ahead. Let me tell you that those few things will do so much for your email marketing response. Let me tell you, they are so powerful. Next, let's dive into the format or layout of the email. Okay. So one thing I'm going to say is don't fall into the trap of making your emails too flashy. That's a common mistake that I see a lot of practices making, is that they'll go with, they have a provider that will do this, and they have pre-formatted templates, and you insert your logo and it's nice and big and bold over the top, or you have a very, have a graphic designer put together a very flashy, glossy, image at the top or in the middle, or, and it's easy. All of a sudden your email is all dressed up and dolled up and it looks like an advertisement. You know what I'm saying? You get those all the time in your email inbox. And what do you do with most of them? Click, right in the trash. That's what happens to most of those emails. And so I am a huge advocate of stripping it down and making your email look like it was something that you just personally sat down to write and shot off to a friend. Meaning, no glossy header image, no massive logo that takes up half the page, avoiding big bright colors everywhere, the whole works. You don't want it to come across as a sales message. It's like, as a mouse, what are your goals? You have two goals: get cheese and avoid cats. Okay. And if your message has whiskers and a long tail and is stalking you everywhere, that looks like a cat. Okay. You want to give them the cheese. Okay. You want to give them, it looks like a personal email. It looks like it's a story. And then we're going to get into a few other tips here in just a second, but you want it to look like this cheese. You're a mouse and you want it to look like this amazing pepper jack cheese. I love pepper jack, so I'm going to say pepper jack. I don't like Swiss cheese, so I'm going to say pepper jack. Pepper jack cheese, that it's all value for them. Okay. You don't want it to look like it's a company, it's a corporation that's just a nameless, faceless corporation that's going to send out emails because they want your money. They want you to buy something from them. No, that is not my experience with email marketing. I try my very best to keep them looking just like what you'd see between two friends. Okay. So there's going to be words that I'm going to bold for emphasis. And yes, I will include images at times. It could be, an emoji or a funny GIF to inject some personality, but keep your formatting simple. You don't want things that are going to distract from the content. That's one question that you can ask yourself. Is this graphic helping substantiate my one goal for the email? If it is, okay, then that might be okay to include. If it's not, it's going out the window. Okay. It doesn't make the cut. For me, I prefer black text on a white background, just like a personal email. I keep going back to that, but that's a great goal to have, is make it look as personal as possible. Another quick tip is don't make your paragraphs long. Short and sweet is the rule for today. Short and sweet is the rule for today. It's like a mantra. Short and sweet. This will help reduce email overwhelm, because yes, that is a thing nowadays. And it's going to help induce your patient to read through the entire email more effectively. Yep, short and sweet. Just keep them shorter paragraphs, space them out so that even visually, you want it to look like it's easy to consume. It's just, one line, maybe two sentences to link together, and then a space, and then a next line, a sentence, next line. You're giving your eyes some space to work with. Okay, it has to visually look like it's easy to get through. That's one of the things, and this probably happens to you too. You open an email, and you clicked on that email subject line, and so you open the email, but then, man, there's like 10 paragraphs in there. I'm not going to read that thing, and you don't read it. So if you make it look like, even if you have more content in there, you can make it look like it's easy to go through, and is actually easier to go through that way because you're really, you're kind of scanning through it. So again, make it short and sweet. And the next point too is let's talk about how you are talking to them. The most effective approach I've found personally is to talk like you are one-on-one with a patient, just an individual conversation. Don't speak to the group. You don't want to say you all or hey everyone or anything like that. You want to make the reader feel like you're having a private conversation with him or her. So when possible, and most email service providers will allow you to do this, customize it with their first name. Okay, so you want to make sure that's updated. So it says, hey, first name, and then the email will actually automatically inject their first name. This is pretty basic, but in case you don't know. So, hey, John, I just wanted to share with this personal story, blah, blah, blah. So there are times again, like anything, there are times when you're going to bend the rules a little bit, but that depends on a number of factors that I'm actually not going to dive into on this episode. So for now, focus and follow these guidelines. Okay, a few last tips for you guys. I know I've been throwing it at you, but I feel so passionate about this because this is a resource that almost all of us have access to. And if we don't, we can get it very easily because we have patients coming in every 6 months or every year. We have that chance built into our practice to get their email address. So a few last tips for you. Be sure to preview your emails before you send them out. Don't just settle for reading these in draft mode. Okay? Actually send yourself a copy and look closely at how it appears in your inbox. Does the subject line stand out against other subject lines in your inbox? How is your email formatting? Is it clean? Is it easy to read? Are the paragraphs bite-sized? Are they consumable? Are you talking one-on-one? Does it read that way? Does it feel that way? A lot of times when I do this, I'm going to notice, okay, maybe I should use this language here, or I use this word, use the word, helpful or exceptional, very close together. And so I tweak that, little things like that to make it read so much better. Is there only one goal of the email? Are your links working? If you have any links on there, are you checking to make sure that those are firing off to the right places? And here's a big one too, you guys. If you're having someone else besides you, if it's someone else in your practice or someone outside your practice preparing your emails, then first, make sure they listen to this episode a few times and take notes because it's so valuable. And second, confirm that you yourself are a subscriber on the email list because that's going to allow you to confirm when they go out, how they look, but it also can serve as a reminder of your recent communication with patients. Okay? You want to know what's going on if a patient brings the subject up during an appointment. Okay? Very important. Very important. I've seen a lot of people, that's one thing you want to avoid is you send out it's a great story and it weaves into your one clear purpose, which in this case might be a promotion. And then the patient comes in and say, hey, I saw your last email. And the doctor's like, oh, what are you talking about? The patient's all excited about this story and how they share how they've had a similar experience. And the doctor's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So it's a great way to remind yourself what's going out and when. So in the event that a patient comes and wants to talk about it. So there you go, my friends. I know that was quite a list for you. And I kind of just fire hosed you with a lot of those things. But what's great about this podcast is that you can go back and listen again. You can also pause whenever you want. If I'm talking too fast, you can slow me down. Or if I'm not talking fast enough, you can speed me up. I actually like to listen to myself. I think I sound better at 1.5 speed. So in case you want to try that. But I know that if you guys start to implement these tips into your email content, then you will start to see and have a better response. And more importantly, it's going to strengthen your relationship with patients. That is one of the cool things about email that I didn't talk about as much is that it allows you to reinforce those relationships. I mentioned a few things, how it can be one-on-one, it can be very personal, and you can get feedback from patients, but it's really there to serve your patients. That is a very, very important thing to remember with all this. It's not It's not to spam your patients with all these promotions and just try and get them to buy every single time, but you want it to be value-based content, things that they are going to find helpful. Okay? So if you're not doing email marketing, then hopefully this has served as a get your butt going wake-up call. Email is that powerful and is one of our secret ninja marketing techniques that we use all the time for clients. And it's one of our go-tos just because it's so powerful. You guys, I keep saying that, but you have access, you have all these people that you already have their email addresses. And most of the time you're not communicating with them in the right way or often enough, or even communicating with them at all. Lastly, if you want to jump into email marketing, but you don't want to spend the time learning how, coming up with content, writing it all out, then reach out to our team. Go to a podcast website, dentalmarketingsecretspodcast.com/contact, and fill out the form. And my team will get back to you with some more information on how we may be able to provide that for you, depending on a few things. So if you're not up to the task, but you know that you need to do it, go to our website, www.dentalmarketingsecretspodcast.com/contact, and fill out the form, and we will get back to you on that. But that is it, my friends. Again, thank you for joining us today on Dental Marketing Secrets. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, I would love to hear from you. Simply email me at markthack@gmail.com. That's MARKT as in Tom, HACK @gmail.com. Or you, like I mentioned before, you can go to our dentalmarketingsecretspodcast.com and find the contact form and fill that out. And also, if you've enjoyed this episode, please leave me a review for this podcast. That would mean a whole lot to me, you guys. I love sharing this information. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of time out of my day. I'm super busy. I'm actually doing this really early in the morning before my girls wake up. But I'm very passionate about this. So if you could leave me a review for this podcast, that would be tremendously helpful. But until next time, my friends, make it a great week.
Did you enjoy this episode of the Dental Marketing Secrets Podcast? Head on over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. And for more proven marketing strategies to grow your practice, visit practicerocket.net.